This is kind of the way she really saw life in a lot of ways is, He has shown thee, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. Micah 6:8. Okay.
I'd like to thank the family for inviting me to speak here tonight. And as I've thought the last few weeks about what I was going to say, words left me, so that's the end of my talk. What can you say, about Michal? I had the privilege of getting to know her in the oncology unit over at St. Joseph Mercy Hospital, where I work as a chaplain. And I was telling Bill earlier, too, that every time she came in, there was some type of new tale or wit or wisdom, something she could impart to me. And I really, truly enjoyed having our time together and listening to her and talking with her. But little did I know what a woman she was, as I've learned more about her, and over time, especially with her writing and being an author. And I've had the pleasure of being able to read some of her books and enjoyed those writings. But I look forward to speaking with her and listening to her. And she always told me a lot about what she was doing in her life. And one of the things that I learned very quickly on, which you probably already know very well, is that Michal was a very determined woman. Even though her illness eventually took her life, it never took her spirit away from her. Even in her very, very last days, her wit and her charm were still very, very evident. Her determination, and especially her faith, kept her going long after most people would have given up. Traveling for second opinions and for surgeries, chemotherapy, things that would have maybe made most of us stop, she took in stride and took them as a challenge and kept on going. Her mind never slowed down, and there may be some of you who wish it would. But she kept thinking, and she kept writing. Even up to the end, she was still writing. She always was making another goal that she wanted to reach in her life. But she was not only an inspiration for us, but for all the people that she saw in the clinic too. We knew of the countless treatments that she went through, but rarely did she ever let on that she was suffering in any way. Rarely did she say she was in any pain. Often she would say, "How are you today?" That's what her question was, not, "I don't feel well," but "How are you?" And when I would say, "Well, how are you, Michal?" And she'd say, "How is that person?" And I'd say, "They're fine, how are you?" "Well, how's that person?" And so she would always direct it in a different direction. She was always talking with the other patients, giving them encouragement and letting them know that they too could get through this. And they in turn would be encouraged just by speaking and listening to her. Michal was also a member of our support group, and when she was in attendance, she always encouraged other people around her. I'll vary from my script a little bit here, that you all know that when you meet some people, there's ways that they can talk and ways they can do things and speak, and it just gives you that encouragement, makes you feel better about yourself. That's what Michal would do to a group of people in the room. Even though when we watched her coming in from the parking lot, we knew this was not a good evening. We knew she wasn't feeling well. We knew whatever was going on, but when she got into that room, her face would light up, and she would start talking to people, and she would always, again, deflect things away from her, but want to know how other people were. But Michal did something else that I'll never forget, and I relayed this to a few people. And in my role as a chaplain, I have an awful lot of opportunities to say prayers with people. And when I pray with people, I always ask if I can hold their hands. And Michal always would, "You betcha." So we'd grab a hold of hands, and we'd have a prayer. And I can remember one time, I think it was the first time, actually, I was praying with her, that when I got through, I said, "Amen," and I started to let go, and she grabbed a hold, and she pulled me right in. And I'm kind of going like, "Oh, what's this all about here?" She said, "I'm going to pray for you." And every time when we got through praying, every single time, she would grab my hand, and she would now say, "And Lord, I pray for David." That really strikes me in the work that I do, because again, what it was showing is that she was so comfortable in herself, she was so comfortable in her own faith, that she wanted to spread that on to other people and what she believed in. We often talked about faith, and of course we know the definition that's found in the book of Hebrews in chapter 11, where it says faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. An example of that, real quickly, I'll share with you, is a few years ago, some friends asked us to go to Pittsburgh with them. And they'd grown up there, and they wanted to show us the city. My wife and I had never been there. So as they're driving around showing us the city, they got lost. I said, you people lived here. Come on, what's going on? So being men, we just keep driving around. We didn't ask for directions. But finally we stopped at a gas station and went inside. And of course the clerk was a male. And of course he didn't know where we were either. You know? We said, how do we get to the freeway? He says, I don't know. But over on the side, there was this little lady. And she came over and she said, I'll show you the way. Now, we don't know who she is. We don't know where she was taking us, but she said, I'll lead you back out to the freeway. And so we followed her for about 10 minutes, going through a couple of neighborhoods, over some hills. You know, Pittsburgh can be real hilly, and going through that area. And pretty soon, there was the freeway with a wave. She was gone. Faith. It's faith. And that's what Michal had. She knew that her life would live on long after her death. Because in John 14, Jesus tells his disciples not to worry. And at a time like today, that's kind of a hard statement. Because a lot of people are missing Michal. She's not sitting here with us. She's not dazzling us with her charm. But she's still with God. Her body is not here anymore, but her soul is there. And Jesus gave that message to his disciples because he said, trust in me, trust God, in God also. For in my house, my Father's house are many rooms. And I'm going to prepare one for you. And you've heard that statement before many, many times. But the archaeologists have begun digging up the houses in Israel. And when a young Jewish man at that time wanted to get married, he had to have a place for them to live. And oftentimes the best way to do that was add a room on to his father's house. And so when Jesus was walking around at that time, you can see why he kind of used that analogy. But he goes on to make another statement, which I've shared with a lot of people, and I'm sure many of you in here are familiar with it, because after he said that, he said this, that when it is time for you to die, I will come to get you so you can be with me where I am. In other words, folks, when we close our eyes for the last time here, we open them again in heaven with God. And of course, Thomas said, but Lord, we don't know the way. And Jesus told him those words, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So today, Michal is rejoicing. She is freed from the pain that she had in her body and what she suffered from. And that is why this is a service of celebration. This is not a service of mourning. For we can remember Michal, and we can smile, and we can laugh, and we can tell stories, and many of you will be able to share for years and years to come. But today she is seeing and doing things that we cannot even imagine. Sometimes people ask me what I think heaven will be like. I ask them just to remember a typical Michigan winter day. Dirty ground, cold, all of that. And you go to bed, and overnight we get that 6 or 7 inch snowfall. And you wake up in the morning and everything is white. All the trees have snow on them. The pine trees are just hanging down. And it's absolutely beautiful. At the time you closed your eyes and went to sleep that night, it was that gray-brown. But when you woke up in the morning, it was beautiful. And I truly think that that's exactly what heaven is going to be like. In other words, in the twinkling of an eye, it would change. And I believe that's what's happened for Michal. That when she closed her eyes for the last time here on earth, she opened them next in heaven. So I want to leave you with a story that a friend of mine wrote. And I think this would apply very, very well to Michal. Imagine that someone takes you to a party. You see a few friends there, you enjoy a couple of good conversations, a little laughter, some decent appetizers. The party's all right, but you keep hoping that it's going to get better. Give it another hour, and maybe it will. But suddenly your friend says to you, I need to take you home. Now? You're disappointed. Nobody wants to leave a party early. But you leave and your friend drops you off at your house. As you approach the door, you're feeling all alone and sorry for yourself. As you open the door and reach for the light switch, you sense that someone's there. Your heart is in your throat. You flip on the light. You know what happens next. Surprise, okay? Your house is full of smiling people, familiar faces. It's a party, but it's for you. You smell your favorite foods. The tables are full. It's a feast. You recognize the guests, people that you haven't seen for a long time. And then one by one, the people that you most enjoyed at the other party begin to show up. This turns out to be the real party. You realize that if you'd stayed longer at the other party as you'd wanted, you wouldn't be at the real party, you'd be away from it. Christians who are faced with a terminal illness or imminent death often feel that they're leaving the party before it's over. They have to go home early. They're disappointed, thinking of everything that they're going to miss. But the truth is, the real party is underway home, precisely where they're going. They are not the ones missing the party. Those of us left behind are. One by one, occasionally a few of us at a time, will disappear from this world. Those that we leave behind will grieve that their loved ones have left home. In reality, however, their believing loved ones aren't leaving home, they're going home. They'll be home before us. We'll be arriving at the party just a little later. Michael's at the party. Thank you.
My brother Tamir was going to lead us, but I realized we selected a hymn he didn't know, so sorry about that. So this is one of many of our mom's favorites. So
You can find it in your insert.
It's I'm going to insert the words to it. Does everybody have one or can get to one? All right, good.
Ready?
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Thank you.
I'd like to add my sincerest thank you to that of David for all of you that traveled here today. Some of you came a very long way, but even if you live right here in town, as many of you do, it's, excuse me, it's a source of real comfort to Gina and to me and to the whole family to see you here, and I sincerely thank you. Now, Michael may be in heaven. She certainly expected to go there, and I think if anybody's eligible, certainly that lady is. I think she would also tell you that she is and shouldn't be thought of as a saint, although some of the things that she did were certainly saintly. But I know what she would tell you about your sadness and your grief and the sense of loss that I think we share. And I hear her saying the same thing to me when I become sad and begin to feel sorry for myself and sort of gaze into the pit of depression and say, well, maybe that's the place to go. I know exactly what she would say. And this is what I think the words would be. big baby. Get over it and get on with it. Because that was her way. Through all of her life, she just refused to recognize obstacles, and if any were as misguided as to get in her way, they were sorry afterwards. I have no idea what it is that was in the heads of Darrow and Neva Pritchard when they chose to name Michael their 9th surviving child, I guess, with a boy's name. But Johnny Cash had the right answer when he talked about the boy named Sue. At some point in her life, she must have come to the conclusion that she was going to wear that name like a badge of honor. And she wouldn't hear of anybody calling her Michelle or any of the names that you might make feminized into something perhaps more widely acceptable. Not a chance. She was Michael, and you knew about that right off. At least I did. And that spirit, I think, prevailed for the rest of her life. She got not only smarter, but wiser and stronger with each passing year. And I was privileged to see that happen. And believe me, I feel that way. And what I would like to share with you are a couple of thoughts about the Michael you may not have known. The Michael that you know, I expect, is the one that David was talking about. This absolutely forceful, special, outgoing woman who was always available to whoever might be in need, and who seemed to need no one herself. And that was because I think she needed or got what she needed from her faith. And that was a big part of her life and a source of strength to her. But there were times when I saw another Michael who came out to play with me, who was a frightened, insecure little girl that had been teased because of her name, and then not recognized for the person that she was for a very long time in her life. And while the first Michael probably didn't need anybody but Jesus, the second one needed me. And don't we all need to be needed? So that was a very special person to me. And there were many others who lived in that same body and who live today. Because I feel I don't know anything about heaven, but I feel in the collective consciousness of everybody here that she's very much present and alive and will continue to live as long as we have some memories of her, and they are many. Beside her bed there were a pile of books. If you know Michael, you know she was a voracious reader and read everything. She used to read the alumni magazines that came to me, the ones I never read. But the two books that were on top are these. this is a Bible, but it's not just any Bible. It's the Remnant Study Bible, and it has her name on it, so I wanted to bring it today. And the other is entitled The Homemaker's Cookbook and Guide to Nutrition. Because that's one of the many ways that Michal showed her love, is through her cooking. And after she had served the most magnificent meal that she whipped up in record time, she would say, "That's disgusting." And she wasn't just fishing for compliments. She maybe needed reassurance. I'm not sure what. But it never was disgusting. So those were two pillars that I think Michal's life rested on, and they're meaningful to me. I just want you to know that she died fighting for every last breath. And she never quit. There was no quit in that woman. And I've always been curious to know what someone's last words were. And what I heard my wife of 32 years say was, I wish, and she never finished that sentence. And being the excellent writer that she was, I think she was very conscious of the power of ambiguity, because every one of us here now can finish that sentence for her, and no two of us will have the same ending. So I thank you, and I look forward to hearing whatever thoughts you may have.
So now is the time in our program where you please do share your thoughts, inspirations about Michal, and if you would come to the podium, because it would make it easier for everybody to hear you. But if you can't and you want to say something from your seat, just raise your hand and we can bring this, because this is a wireless microphone. But please come and share your thoughts, whatever they are, and with the rest of us, because we'll all benefit from them. Thank you.
My name is Paul, and she was my grandma. She was a perfect grandma. Always made good food, always bought toys for me, always had all the answers, even if they didn't always make sense. I'm going to miss her.
Thank you.
I hate to harp on the subject of cooking, but it's hard to think of Michal and not think of food. I think she won me over with her chocolate bread many years ago, and that's something that I still carry around deep in my taste buds. But when I think of Michal, what comes to mind is a kind of compassionate, gentle honesty that was never hurtful. And honesty is so often a thin guise for cruelty or something negative. And Michal's honesty was just always so tender and gentle and supportive and growth promoting and all that kind of good stuff, that incredibly endearing and really powerful. And I'm delighted to have known her. Oh, I'm Ben. I'm Bill's brother.
Hello, my name's Laura Jackson, and I've known Michal for about 20 years from Sacramento. I worked with her at Kaiser. I'm a physical therapist. She was a social worker in hospice. I don't know, I think a lot of you knew that. I've got some very funny memories of her. She convinced me to write a book with her on stepmothering, I think about 15 years ago or so. and she'd be like, we're meeting at 6:30 a.m. at this coffee shop, before work, and I'd be, are you kidding me? No, we're meeting at 6:30, and she would be there, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday, anyway, it was, kept me on track. She really encouraged me to go back to school, and I got my PhD just a year ago, and she really encouraged me to do that. She said, you've got to do that, Laura. And she encouraged me to do a lot of things. She encouraged me to love the rain. She loved it when it rained. I love this weather. I'd be like, oh my God, this is so depressing. She loved she had a little, her little, what do you want to call it? I don't want to call it a shed, but what would you call that when we called it that. She made this, she goes, I got this great idea. And I was like, well, what are you going to do now? She goes, well, I've got my own little space out here. She seriously built a shed out in the backyard for her when she did her rugging. She did her rugs and writing, and she was so excited to get her little heater out there. I remember all these things, and the dogs, and just her love for animals and people, and just making you feel loved. That's all I can say. She was just wonderful. I'm really going to miss her.
I am Gina and Michael's daughter. I feel so privileged that she was my mom, and that I got to be raised by her. My mom gave me amazing gifts, and one of them was she gave me the world. She gave me the sense that I'm a child of this world, and the world is my oyster, and she gave me the self-confidence to not be cowed by anything. And for my 4th birthday, we didn't have any money for presents, none at all. And so since we just landed on the moon, she told me that that was for me. They did that for me, for my birthday. And so I guess I was also given the moon, not just the world. She made the best scrambled eggs in the entire world, and for years I tried to replicate them and couldn't. And finally, in these past 2 years, she taught me how, and I'm so grateful to her, and because now I can make nice fluffy scrambled eggs. And her meatloaf too. But there's so many things that I wish I could do, but she left a lot of recipes, and she actually didn't do things from recipes. She would read Sunset Magazine or whatever, get recipes, and then put them aside, and a week later or 2 weeks later she would do it again, but just from her memory and her own intuition. And again, the cooking thing, but she did a lot of things besides cook. That book that she wrote with Laura, who is up here, was her first book that she'd ever read, and written. She'd read a lot. That was just the stepping stone for her to write a lot more. And I'm so glad she did, because now we have them. Her voice can live on through these books of short stories and these series. And I read some of the short stories not till after she had died, and I wished that I'd read them before so I could ask them, because I see bits and pieces of our family throughout all these stories, and and her friends and her own experiences, and it's really nice. I mean, don't read them thinking they're nonfiction, because they are definitely fiction. But it's really fun. I think you've heard people say she had a will of steel, and really strong will. When she wanted to do something, she set about it, and she did it. And she did it from start to finish, and she did it in record time. And she's always been a great example to me, although I haven't really taken that example because I just don't have. Yeah, I don't think anybody can really follow fully in her footsteps. But since she died, it's like her spirit of get it done has come to me. So I've gotten so much done since she passed away, and so I really thank her for that. I don't know, whether I just resolved to try and carry the torch a little bit, but and her will and her zest for life and her creativity and her inspiration all make me know for sure that we're not just input-output machines that, some people think that we might be. Our brains are physical things, and we think that, and they're changed by the things that we do and see and learn. And a lot of people say, well, we're just, signal response kinds of creatures. But in fact, the sheer will to live and her will to love and get things done and her spark of creativity show me that, in fact, something beyond, just the responses that our brain, does. Anyway, thanks.
Hi, Lindsay McDivitt, and I'm a neighbor and friend of Gina and Michael and Bill. You're no slouch, Gina. You have a lot of your mom in you. And I've just been so privileged to know the whole family. But Gina was one of my first friends. We moved from Minnesota about 3 years ago, and Michael really reached out, and we became friends. And I just feel so privileged to have her in my life. She was part of our Iroquois Street book club, and she was a real tremendous spark in that book club, and we already miss her tremendously. Everybody's talked about her humor, her stories were so funny. I'm sure you all have great memories of funny stories that Michael told, and she just has such a glow. When I think of Michael, I think of just this glowing person, and so insightful. You see that in her stories. Once said that I think that she has met a million people and remembered something about every single one of them and integrated them into her stories, and which makes them really fun. It was very neat. I think it was only about 3 days after Michael passed away that we had a book club meeting scheduled, and Gina came. We were so thrilled, and Elizabeth, and we got to meet her and reminisce about Michael and how much we all just adored having her as a part of our group, and that was really, really special. And so the members that couldn't be here today want the family to know how much they treasured knowing her too. So thank you.
I hope everybody can hear me. My name is Deborah, and I'm a member of the support group Michael was in. I'm determined to get through this.
You will.
I was sharing with one of the support group members today that I remember when my mother passed away, that one of the gifts that was given to me was when everyone came up and talked about her, all of a sudden there were these different pieces of my mother's life that came together that none of us really knew all the pieces, and Gina will probably tell you the same thing. And so now you get to, my mom was in a bowling group. She was in, she had her hospital group. There were all these different groups. So I knew Michael from her support group. So we were all talking about this picture that we saw today with this long hair. And we were like, wow. And Gina said most of her adult life she had this long hair. And we all knew her with the short hair, which is really, really cute. You know how every now and then you meet a person and it's like there's this instant click that you have with that person? And that's what I had with Michael when I first met her at the support group. It was just something about this lady that, I had this instant connection with. And she was like, I couldn't believe this woman. It's like she was going through the same thing I was, but she seemed to never be sad. She was always so uplifting to everyone else in the group. And we would talk occasionally on the telephone. And one of the things that Gina might not know about that we shared together was I called Michael once and said, what are you doing today? That I was going to head down to the riverfront just to walk along the riverfront. I really like doing that since they fixed it up in Detroit. Sometimes I'll take my dogs with me. It's really pretty for those that haven't gone. And Michael says, well, I'm going to go with you. I've never been down there. I said, really? All this time you haven't been down there. So anyway, we met to go down to the riverfront, and we just had another one of our members that went with us, and we really had a very nice afternoon just talking and sharing and getting to know a little bit more about her. And when we were getting ready to leave, she told me that she had never been to Belle Isle. And the only thing I regret is that I didn't force her that day to go to Belle Isle, because she never got, we kept saying, well, we'll get a chance to go back. And we never got a chance to go back to Belle Isle. But I just want to thank Gina and her family for allowing us to be a part of their family. These tears, I don't know where they're coming from, a lot of different places, and I'm sorry, but I do miss Michael. Our whole group misses Michael, and just thank you for letting us be a part of her life.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Smith.
Elaine Mills.
Lynn Johnson.
We are part of the Ann Arbor Seventh-day Adventist Book Club. Jenna was, Michael was a member of for a long time. We would meet every other Wednesday, and we would go over different books. We would read books out of the Bible. I think we might have started with John and went through, and we would discuss a lot of different spiritual things, and it helped all of us. We read other books, and but we met every Wednesday, and every Wednesday that Michael could come, she was there faithfully. Through the winter, through the summer, sometimes she had on gloves and hats. We would say, it's not cold outside. And because of her going through all of her therapy and taking her medications, she would come in all dressed up and scarves. But she was such a blessing to our group. She was a very strong individual. And we would just get inspired just from her strength. And all the time she would go out of town for different treatments and come back. She would always come back to the book club. And we would share about our families. I'd pray for our children, pray for our husbands, pray for our spiritual growth. So it was just a blessing to know her. She was a wonderful person. And she inspired all of us because she was so strong to go through this. And we just love her.
And we'll miss her very, very much. And I think one of the features I'll miss most about Michael is those beautiful blue eyes.
And it's delightful to hear other aspects of her life, because our meetings were often quite prayerful, and we did share what was going on. And one of the things, of course, her prayer was not so much for herself, although we could tell, and many times we had very earnest prayer for her. And I do believe the Lord answered that prayer and gave her as much extra time as He did. But her prayer was always for her family. And she said, pray for my family, pray for my family. And I know your Christian experience was a very important part of her desire for you. As you know, the Seventh-day Adventists believe that Saturday is the true Sabbath, that it got changed over the years through various reasons. And that was important to her. And she believed it firmly, as we do as well. And that she wanted to put God first and God's way first. And it showed in her. She reflected God. She really did. And I'm so glad, as we all are, there's a couple more from the book group here, that we got to know her and witness her faith.
Thank you, ladies.
Hi, my name's Linda. I was Michael's oncology nurse. And other nurses took care of her, but I pretty much took care of Michael. We connected right off the bat. And, when you take care of people that are facing the challenges of cancer, you can't let everybody in. Because if you do, you'll just break apart. But there's people that sneak in there, and Michael's one of them. If I live to be 100, Michael will still be here. I miss her. I love the books she writes because I hear her. I hear her humor. I hear her voice. It's just like she never left. And I told Gina that I wish we had met somewhere else. I could have been her friend, and we could have had a blast. I left for vacation to go see my daughter in February. It must have been that week, I think, but she was pretty uncomfortable. So I put her in a bed, And she says, "You're going to see Angie?" And I says, "Yeah, I'm going to see Angie." She says, "Okay." She says, "You know, I love you." And I says, "Well, I love you too." She says, I may not be here when you get back." So she said her goodbye. But she's one heck of a lady, I tell you.
Hello, my name is Lovely.
You know what you're going to say? Okay, that's enough. I'm Tamir. I'm Michael's son. And yeah, I have a lot of good memories. She taught me to drive when I was like 11, and me driving on the freeway in LA, and she'd let go of the wheel and make me drive. You know, she's like, "You better drive because we're going to crash," you know. So we're leaving over and steering, you know. I saw her work really hard to stay alive as long as she did, you know, doing a lot of research about clinical trials and all that, and that helped me respect life and quality of life and that sort of thing. And I really appreciated that about her. And it was really nice having, she's who I'd call for advice. Unless I was in trouble with the law, then I'd call one, call somebody else. But I'm really going to miss that. You know, she's kind of like my reference on anything, raising kids being sick, whatever. I mean, especially with the first one, when I was always, there's a lot of things that would come up that would just be normal that you don't know how to handle. It's nice having mother to call up and talk to about it. So still haven't quite gotten in my head that she's gone yet. Went over to the house today, looked at her computer, I'm like, well, where is she? You know, so anyway, it's good to be here, good to see you all. I appreciate you all coming. What do you remember now? Go ahead. Okay, no.
I can be the last one.
My name is Jasmine, and Michael is my aunt. And she's the kind of force that you can never put in past tense. And I think that one of the reasons that everybody's so focused on her cooking is because it's such a physical manifestation of the intangible that she gave to us. Michael's kitchen was food for our bodies, and Michael's presence was food for our souls. And I thank her for that.
Hi, I'm Lisa, and I have great childhood memories of Michael. Most of you, of course, knew her, an adult with children already, but I was privileged to be the third child of the household growing up with Gina and Tamir. And what I really loved and appreciated about Michael was just her great sense of humor. And she would really just have fun and play with us. And part of what we did, she would scour the thrift stores, and we had lots and lots of clothes to dress up in and play in. And then she also had a stack of 50s records, so I owe my love of 50s music to her, even though wouldn't have been exposed to that without her. But that's what we would do. We would put the stack of records on, and we'd have about, I think there were 6 in that set, and we'd, let them play, Red Sails in the Sunset, all sorts of things. So we would have fun dressing up and just giggle for hours on end, and just she would dress up too and take us to the store, and that would be the part that I would just I was so embarrassed for one thing, being a tween, insecure tween that I was, but I would love every minute of it. She would put on a disguised voice or, German accent and go order ice cream for us at Thrifty or Rite Aid or something like that. So she just really had such just a great sense of humor. And there's a picture that I wish we had up here of three people sitting at so Michael and two other ladies sitting at a picnic table. And the ladies are just dressed in normal clothes, and here's Michael with her sunglasses on and a mustache and, goatee, like, drawn on her face. Just she just was fun and zany, and I really loved that about her. And she gave me my best friend, and I'm really grateful. And she really was an amazing lady and really an anchor for me for faith, and taught us a lot about, the Lord, and just really taught a lot about life. And she really was a kind of a mother of the earth. And I was sharing this with Bill again about food. There really wasn't anything in the cupboards. I mean, really nothing in the cupboards. And she would, whip up, I don't know where she got it, but this amazing food. And I loved it when she was on a diet, because we ate like crazy. The most amazing soups we've ever had, and bread and cookies. And, it was an outlet for her, but she just really enjoyed it and enjoyed feeding us. So she was great, and I'm privileged to be here. And wish it weren't under these circumstances, but it's, it's a celebration of her life.
Good evening. My name is Dag Perkins. I'm Gina and Tamir's half-brother. And I remember the first time I met Michael was in Tucson when Gina was teaching at the university there. And I remember being a little concerned about this meeting because, really Michael was my stepmom. And, with blended families, you can have a little bit of a challenge there. But I can say with Michael, there was no challenge. It was almost an instant bond between she and I, especially when we started talking about her filming. Because my undergrad's radio, TV, film, so we had a instant rapport with that. And we got involved in an online book club called Shafari. And we communicated that way, and it was very cool. And as I was thinking about this trip, and sometimes it's dangerous giving me a mic because I am a pastor, so I kind of tend to go that way. But as I was thinking about this trip and thinking about Michael's life, the thing that just leapt out in my thoughts was this. Being a child of Christ, you are adopted into his family. No matter what your background is or where you come from. And as I think about Michael, she lived that. As you look across the family, she lived that. Take that and keep that with you, because I can't think of a better testimony to someone's life than that.
Mm-hmm. My name's Rick Reinsmith. I'm Gina and Gary's neighbor. And I belong to a club that none of the rest of you did, Michael and I. We spent more time in line at CVS than any of the rest of you. And she'd be picking up some medication, and I'd be getting one for me. And this one time I always remember, I think I told Gina this, I was just standing there, and I just turned around, and there she was, and she said, Xander told me that he hopes I'll be buried under the road. And Zach was standing there, and he was kind of laughing. And I just thought, it was just a wonderful one. Because he wanted his grandma close.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Does anybody else want to say something? Raise your hand, I'll bring the mic to you, I promise. Okay, all right. Good. Hope it works. Let's test. Yes.
I'm Sam Perkins, Gina's father, Tamir's father. It was my distinct honor and pleasure to have been married to Michael for roughly 5 years back in the 1960s. We were 60s flower children. I want to help put the issue of faith in context, because now as I sit here and listen to stories about Michael, I realize how important that was. I was a Unitarian intellectual snob who claimed to love Christ but to dislike Christians. Christians for me were people who stabbed each other in the back while talking to an invisible friend in the sky. Michael didn't particularly appreciate that. And it was to my great surprise to learn that once she got smart enough to leave me, she turned to the church and got involved in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Total surprise, because it's not the way we had lived up until then, but I was the reason for that. Okay? So, in addition to having a sense of humor, in addition to being very wise, she was also smart. She was smart enough to leave me. Okay.
You're a man.
All right, well, thank you guys. Thank you so much for coming, every one of you. Some of you from a very long way, and you all meant so much to Michael, to my mom. This next thing we're going to do is a song. So those of you who are going to participate, come on forward. That my mom liked a lot. Warren Zevon wrote it just after he was diagnosed with mesothelioma, and was the last song he recorded. She would also scream in laughter to another song he wrote a few years before that, which was called My Blanks Blanked Up. If you ever get a chance to listen to that one, you can go to YouTube, him doing it. She would just roll on the floor with laughter because it's a really good one. Come on. This one's called, yeah. Oh, yes, I do. This is called Keep Me in Your Heart.
Shadows are falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your
Lisa.
That was a beautiful song. Thank you. Bill, what you said, I think when you said what Michael's last words were, I wish. Maybe the legacy that we have from all the gathering that's been done here today and everything that's been said is if there's something that you wish, something that hasn't been said, something that hasn't been done, if there's forgiveness or reconciliation to take place in your families, if somebody you need to say to them, I love you, maybe what Michael's saying, I wish we do that now. So be thinking about that in the days to come. I think that's a great legacy, and all of us should fill in that blank, I wish. Those two words. Thinking about a closing prayer, I felt that really the one from St. Francis would probably be one of the best. So if you'd pray with me. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Lord, may I not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love, because it is in giving that we receive, in pardoning that we are pardoned. And Lord, I just ask again for your blessings upon this family and their friends. As we know, Michael will always live in our hearts. She will be there, and as she said, I wish. In your name, amen.
Thank you, David.
Just want to say there are refreshments and more socializing across the hall, and you can be in and out, eat anywhere you like. There's lots to eat and lots to say.
And an open house.
And an open house afterward at my dad's house. It's in the bullet. It's in the
Our house.